You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle with TGI Sports Talks one-on-one with Keith Engle. Hope everybody's doing well today. In a little bit, he has not arrived yet, but in a little bit, my guest will be Jim Biringer from FullPressHockey.com. Last Word on Sports. Yard Barker's picking up his stuff now. A bunch of them here are picking up Jim's stuff on the NHL, and Jim also is well-versed in some other stuff. We might talk about some college football and such today as well. We'll see how we get into with Jim. I think I'm going to try to make Jim a regular part of the Friday show, like once a month, when we don't have the interviews and such. We'll see how that goes. If we can do it. I'm going to welcome everybody watching today on Facebook. Are you watching on Facebook, guys? Are we live today? What are we? Let's take a quick look. We'll welcome everybody watching on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. And of course, I'm not live on. Unbelievable, man. Let me. Why do I have to do this every time, guys? All right, we're going to try to put this back on. You can click it when you get to it. If you're not watching on TGI Sports Talk, if you click on my profile picture where it says live, you can get me. But it's supposed to stream in the. That's still not live. Hang on a second. I have to do this every show now. It seems I'm still not live. Oh, Facebook, you kill me. Let's see what's going on. I don't even show that now. So our audience could be down a little bit today. I apologize, guys. Hopefully that will change here in the short term. Let me refresh it one more time. Still not on. Anyway, we're also live on Roku on the National Streaming Sports channel. We're live on, plausibly live on the groups that we share too, the Sports Authorities with John Gonzalez, with Flo and the gang at Bottom Line Sports, Let's Talk Sports, where Jim does some contributing. I believe he still does. And also where Flo and the gang do there. I'm going to try this one more time. Bear with me, guys. I wonder if I took the wrong one out. Or I wonder if I have it in here at all. Now that I look, I'm not sure that I do. No, I don't. Good God. I am so tired of Facebook. Anyway, groups. Any of the National Hockey League groups that will let me share this today. Ken Krause at Sports Bud, Sports of All Sorts. I want to thank you for allowing me to share, and all the groups that allow me to share. Jim will come on today and talk a little bit NHL. I mean, we got a lot to talk about. We've got some of the New York teams struggling. His Devils were doing well, and now they're struggling. Could be some coaching changes in New York soon. We'll talk about, storylines to date, surprises, disappointments, and the such. CA, I know we'll want to talk a little bit about the Stars when Jim gets here, so we'll certainly do that. Welcome, CA. Good to have you with us. I'm trying to check Facebook at the same time and see if we're on now. Even with the Nazis gone, they can't seem to do anything right. I'm still not live. I'm live again if you click the profile picture. I guess I'll have to tell guys this as we go along. If you don't see me live in the stream, click on where it says live on my profile picture. So frustrating, This is my major platform for broadcasting this show, and I've got to constantly be manipulating things to get myself where I want it to be. So anyway, Jim will join us in a few minutes. Again, we might even get to some hockey. We'll get to some hockey, as I said. We'll talk surprises and disappointments to date. We'll talk about coaches maybe in trouble, as I mentioned, pretenders and contenders, and what you might expect to see in the second half of the season, or or at the trade deadline and things like that. And we'll get Jim back on a little more regularly. So if you got any questions, and maybe we'll talk some college football, college basketball, I don't know, whatever comes up. And as I said, I'm hoping to get Jim as part of maybe this, or in a regular rotation, maybe on Fridays. Jim used to come on Sundays a lot. The way the Sunday show goes now, I feel like I break the rhythm of the comments and such. So I don't know if I want to do that or not. So bear with us while we wait for Jim to come in. We can talk about anything else you might want to talk about. We'll jump into we'll jump into Jim as soon as he gets here. But until then, we can talk about anything like in the NHL. I can hold my own if we have to. Ovechkin about to break the record of Gretzky. As well, there's another topic we can jump into. So we can talk about any of that. Oh, God. And anything else that's going on in the world of sports. We will have the MLB update coming up here soon. What else should we talk about? Oh, gosh, I blew up last week or Wednesday night, and I guess I'll apologize to Sonia and the group. I really had a blowout about the whole fixing the NFL games. And Mac had a good stat today. You know, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are playing this weekend, and there's been more roughing the passers called on Josh Allen than Patrick Mahomes. But stop talking about fixing the games. I'll get into this more on Sunday. I'm really I'm going to put an end to this topic because I'm not talking about it on my shows after Sunday. There's a difference between bad refereeing and fixing games and scripting games. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm going to start calling people out for what they actually are. I try to be polite. Do I really? Probably not. Let me just see. Are there any big stories in the NFL to chat? Let's look at I'm going to look at the standings real quick since we're waiting on him. Let's look at the NHL standings. In the East, you've got Toronto, always strong in the regular season, leading away in the Atlantic, and the Florida Panthers, defending champions, chasing them down. The Bruins are trying to right their ship. The Lightning just don't ever want to go away, it seems. And the Metropolitan, very interesting season here. Washington leading the way with 71 points, most points in hockey right now. Carolina, 8 points behind. The Devils, who are off to a great start, have sputtered recently. We'll talk to Jim about that for sure. The Blue Jackets are there. The Rangers can't seem to get out of their own way, but they're 7-0-3 in their last 10. Are they getting it right? Is Peter Laviolette safe now? There's a lot of talk in the New York papers about him recently. And we'll get to Jim on all of that as well. Out west, Winnipeg continues to play well, maybe slowed down a little bit from the pace they were on earlier as well, but leading the way in the Central. It's weird to have the Western Conference in a Central division, right? They lead the way. Minnesota is right there. CA's Dallas Stars are 29-17. Colorado, always a contender, not far behind. Vegas, who always seems to be there as well, 30-14 in the Pacific. Edmonton playing well. The Kings, Danny Fuller's Los Angeles Kings playing well. I hope Danny can join us when Jim gets on here this morning. And I do have a hard stop at 10 today, guys, because I have a work meeting. And then Vancouver, Calgary, the Kraken under 500. We got a couple comments here. Ronnie Bear down in Texas. How are you, buddy? That was one of the funniest things. I was listening to ESPN radio this morning. Watch the video, guys. If you haven't seen the video of this woman trying to spell Eagles in the city she's the mayor of, it's too funny. And on ESPN radio this morning, Ronnie, they played a clip of a guy from recent clip of a guy from Wheel of Fortune who had, I think the answer was mythological hero Achilles, and he said mythological heroes Chili's. And they talked about they should match up the Philly mayor and this Chili's guy in a grudge match. CA mentioned around 2 years ago the move. Let's see, mentioned around 2 years ago to move folks to YouTube. Better all. I can't. It's impossible right now because I don't have a way to. If we're talking about moving this show 100% to YouTube, one of the reasons I didn't stay with Let's Talk Sports was I didn't want to be 100% on YouTube because I don't know I have a way, for lack of a better term, to manipulate an audience. I get 2, 3, 4,000, sometimes more, depending on the interviews. Well, we've been as high as 10,000 views on Facebook. I don't know how to do that on YouTube, so we're not going to be switching over there 100%. Anyway, with that said, we're going to get into all this talk. I've got Jim Biringer, as I said, from he's in the green room having a little coffee and steak and eggs, so I'll give him a second. Jim's becoming quite a big deal, man. He's everywhere. We know he's on FullPressHockey.com. We know he's been on Last Word on sports. I think he's still on LTS. He can tell us about that. I see his stuff picked up by Yardbarker now. That's a big deal. And a bunch of other places. So we'll talk to Jim about that, and we'll talk about all the stuff, the storylines in the NHL, the surprises, the disappointments, the contenders and pretenders, coaches in trouble, all of that right now. Welcome, Jim Biringer. How are you?
What's up? What's going on? How we doing, guys? It's been a long time.
It's been a while. It's time there's so much going on in the world. It's hard, not that I'm not starting to disparage the world of hockey, but it's just too hard. There's so many things going on at the same time from September to January. It's like, oh.
There was a lot of drama, too, at the beginning of the year, too. There was a lot going on from Boston to New York to Vancouver to Calgary. It was everywhere.
But
Montreal. There's a lot of drama.
Our guests certainly have been itching to talk to you. So Rick Sherlock said, welcome, Ringmaster. Jim, it's talking about some of that drama. What have been the big storylines to date? And we'll get into some other conversations, obviously, off of that. But what have been the big storylines to date? Trouble in New York in a couple of franchises. That's, I'm sure, a storyline. But what else you got?
Yeah, I mean, look, we could go back to the beginning of the season, and we could go to the offseason. And, the Boston Bruins with, Jeremy Swayman and the Linus Ullmark trade and the contract and how they got off to a poor start. And we could talk about, Jim Montgomery gets fired, but did they really want him there to begin with? Because they tried to offer him an extension. St. Louis had tried to reach out to him. I think if Boston had lost to Toronto in the playoffs last year, he's probably getting fired, and then he's going to be a St. Louis Blue, and that's what ended up happening. But the Swayman contract, the turmoil in there, and it seems like, Boston, they're just holding on right now. They're not one of the top 3 teams in the division. Right now they're outside the wild card mix, but, they're right in the mix. I think where everybody thought they were. Their signings weren't that great. Zadorov's played a little bit better as of late on the back end, but the Elias Lindholm deal, they still need a number 1 center. Do they have a lot of free agents this year with Trent Frederick, Morgan Geekie. They have players. Do you move on from Charlie Coyle? Do they move the captain, Brad Marchand? These are questions this organization is going to have because, they've been in setback mode since 2015, and everybody can say, oh, that's a long time ago. But when you miss on 3 first-round picks and the one guy you selected is still playing in the National Hockey League and you didn't replace him, that's a problem. So I think Boston was a big storyline. I think, things have cooled a little bit, but they're still looking for a number 1 center and scoring. And then obviously, the Rangers get off to a good start, and then all of a sudden, they want to trade everybody. Trouba wants to be out. Kreider wants to be out. They want to move all these players. So that's become a locker room mess. But the mess started in the summer because, let's be honest, and I've said this for a while, and look, people take stuff, and everybody wants to credit Larry Brooks and everything. They needed to put their big boy pants on like every other team did, and say, hey, you know what? It's a business. We got to recognize it as a business. We understand that our general manager has to manage a salary cap. I understand Jacob Trouba doesn't want to go. He didn't want to get traded. He ends up getting traded to Anaheim. We knew Capo Caca was eventually going to get moved. He goes to Seattle. Actually, the draft pick, the 2 players that they brought in, Vakanainen from Anaheim, the defenseman, and Will Borgen, has actually been pretty good. They've really stabilized that defense. And, ever since the Christmas break, they played a little bit better. Actually, they're 7-0-3 in their last 10. Yeah. Igor Shesterkin looks like the guy that signed his $11 million contract. That was a big headache. the problem was they had too many distractions coming into the season. The Shesterkin was over them. Guys want to get traded. The players hate the GM, all that stuff. They had a lot of distractions. But they were still one of the better teams in the division. But the division got better. So the Devils got better. Carolina was still there. Washington was there. And, they suffered because of the poor play and the turmoil and the players just, being, they put their big boy pants on to go play like we saw in Tampa and Vegas and these other places where they have salary cap problems and players and likable players get moved. Well, it's a business, Sorry, guys. This is hockey. This is what happens, and it's in all sports. You can't play with your friends all the time. It doesn't happen. There's no such things as super teams in the National Hockey League. As much as we think there are, there isn't. So that was an issue.
Do you think they're on the right track? Just talk about that real quick. The Rangers are on the right track.
I think they're on the right track. Look, a lot of people ask me when they started going on that tailspin, do you think they're going to be a playoff team? And I said, so
that round of applause is for you. Sorry, that was an accident.
No, it's okay. No, I was going to say, I still thought they were a playoff team, and I still think they are a playoff team just because I just don't think, who's better than them right now in front of them in the wild card. You have Ottawa, you have Montreal, Boston's there, Islanders are fading, do we really, Philly's not really a playoff team. So I think the Rangers could get there. Detroit's hanging around. So there's a bunched up group of teams in, that Eastern Conference right now. That's made a lot of difficult decisions for a lot of teams right now because, with the Four Nations face-off coming up, we expect trade activity to happen. But the problem is the teams that we think would sell are not selling because, they've become buyers because they're in the playoff rate. And, speaking with some people around the league, they're like, emphasis is on making the playoffs. So do we really want to sell right now?
Right.
So, and obviously the big name right now is the turmoil in Vancouver with JT Miller, Elias Pettersson. I mean, that was we know what that history is, and the Canucks are open to moving one of the players. Right now it's JT Miller, and I expect that to be done before Four Nations. I think Carolina and New York is in there, but again, I think the issue is going to be the retention on this deal because Vancouver doesn't want to retain any money on this deal. And for teams to take on the full $8 million cap hit, they're going to have to throw in a sweetener. And right now they're not doing it, but I expect it to get done because they've been talking about it. And it's going to take a haul to get either player out of Vancouver. And I think it's going to take an even bigger package to get Elias Pettersson out of there because they believe he is one of their foundational pieces. I could see, I've been saying, talking with people, I think it's going to be similar to what Winnipeg Jets got for Pierre-Luc Dubois. You get three pieces, maybe a guy that could play in your top six, and then, two complementary NHL players and a draft pick. But now Vancouver's moving off, maybe potential some futures a part of it. So, I mean, again, this is something to watch, but I expect Carolina, New York, Boston to be the teams that really go hard for JT Miller.
What do we have? A month till the trade deadline? I don't even.
A little over. No, well, the trade deadline's March 7th.
So a little more.
A couple of weeks. So those, again, unwritten. Here's the thing with Four Nations. There's no rule that states you can't make trades during Four Nations, but everybody's kind of treating it like unwritten rule that, hey, you know what, league activities going on, and it's. What happens during Four Nations, we don't want to take away from it.
We talked about the situation in with the Rangers. That Metropolitan Division has been very interesting. Your Devils got off to a really good start and have kind of leveled off. The Rangers off to a bad start, starting to pick it up. Islanders can't get out of their own way.
Guess it was still Barry Trotz's fault.
Probably. Are these anybody in trouble? I mean, you expect, first of all, you expect your Devils to rebound.
I mean, they won the other night. Yeah, they won the other night. I think that's the kind of the game that's going to catapult them to start playing a little bit better. The break came at the Christmas holiday came for them at the wrong time because they were playing so well.
Yeah,
and they couldn't get their momentum back. some tough losses, bad mistakes, games they probably should have won, didn't. But now, they rebound, they get a nice win, they honor their former coach, 95 team, all that. They get a nice win over a struggling Bruins team. That's what you need to do.
That's nice
Now,
for
rebound,
sure.
go play Montreal, try to get that win. Start stringing some wins together. I think the top three in the Metro are fine. I think Washington means the biggest surprise. I had them as a playoff team this year. I didn't think they would be this good. I didn't think they would be sitting at the top of the division. Charlie Lindgren, you have Logan Thompson's playing really well. The guys that they brought in, the new kid up there, Ethan Frank, but you have Andrew Mangiapane's in there, Matt Roy, Jacob Chikrin. They're having fun and they're winning. Spencer Carberry is such a great coach, and you're seeing, and Alex Ovechkin's feeding off of that because now he's 20 away from Wayne Gretzky, and
Yeah.
it's definitely going to happen this season.
I had a question there. I mean, you answered half of it. Is the team feeding off of Ovechkin's chase, and is Ovechkin feeding off of their success, or is it a combination of the two things?
I think it's a combination of the two things, but I think what they've done is they've really retooled and accelerated their retool on the fly, bringing in the right pieces, getting younger at the right time, and knowing it was going to be about Alex and chasing Wayne, but still putting a competitive team on the ice, unlike what we see in Pittsburgh where, they just can't get out of their own way. Yes, it's going to happen.
It will happen.
This season.
Where does that put him in the rankings of great hockey players?
I mean, to me, he's the best pure goal scorer in NHL history.
That's high praise.
I mean, to me, I saw Wayne play, I saw Mario play, but to me, Alex is the best pure goal scorer I've seen in the National Hockey League, in the game. Like, I'm not even saying modern day, like NHL history.
Staying in the East real quick and on these New York teams, obviously Keith is safe in New Jersey. Is boy, here we go again. Peter Laviolette going to survive this? He'll survive this season. Does he need to go deep in the playoffs to keep that job? And is Patrick Waugh
going to be? He has to go deep in the playoffs, and so does the GM, because if the GM thinks he can just fire another coach, and this is what we're saying at the beginning of the year, when there was rumblings, because I think Laviolette's job was on the line earlier.
Early, yeah.
If he fired another coach, he better be looking for another job because he joined him on the unemployment line. And you and I have documented this, when the mess happened a few years ago with the Rangers. I was never a fan of what they did with Jeff Gordon and John Davidson. I know they had a plan in place with the Rangers. And, it's funny because I thought that's the way they wanted to go, but because you have quasi-bubble playoff success and you're not following we made the playoffs. Well, we have to make the playoffs the next year. Well, you got basically gifted a playoff spot because the league shut down because of COVID, so we're going to go to 24 teams. You would have missed the playoffs anyway, and your next trajectory was just going to miss again, and then you would have made playoffs. So, I mean, they were on the right track, and then they decided to blow it up. And now Christian's got to figure out how to, finagle money and move players around. And I think they're going to regret not developing their young players the right way. Like Lafreniere. I mean, Lafreniere needs to start playing a little better. He has been since he signed his deal. But I still don't understand why. Maybe it just didn't work out. Maybe timelines just didn't work out. I think they're going to regret trading Capo Caco. And they already are because he's playing so well in Seattle right now. He's looking like the kid that got drafted second overall.
Great point. The Islanders are not out of the hunt for the playoffs, but is Patrick Waugh going to be? Is he in trouble now, or is he going to be in trouble?
No, he's not in trouble. I've talked with some people. The only way Patrick Waugh leaves is if Patrick Waugh wants to leave. Lou Lamoriello is not going to fire him. It's the coach he hired. The GM's probably in trouble if they don't make the playoffs, though, because there were rumblings last year that they wanted to move on from him. Because he's just not upgrading the team the way they need to be. He's consistent, and the goal scoring is just a problem. Team's older, team's slower. They're not that good. Like, you're relying on goaltending to get you in a playoff spot, and what are you going to do, lose in 5-6 games again? Like, they need to address their goal scoring problems. They don't have it. They need to get better. every year it's the same thing in the offseason. Need to get goal scoring, need this. They don't do it. And they sign old players. Like Anthony Duclair is a nice player. He's not the goal scorer they needed. But no one wants to play for Lamoriello. And no one wants to go to the island because of these rules and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
people want to deny it. That's fine. But when there's a value and Lamoriello says X and you're only going to get that and the rest of the league's getting Y, I'm going to go take Y.
Who isn't?
Right. Like, I'm going to go get more money. Like, so, I mean, they're in talks. You know, I think they're a sneaky team with Vancouver because just a feeling that I have, you know, it's too quiet around them right now. So when it's too quiet around them, something's going down. But again, they're not going to sell off unless Lamoriello truly believes they're not going to make the playoffs. The outside world knows they're not going to make the playoffs. He's got to admit it to himself.
Fair enough. Who up to this point, and we'll talk about the future in a little bit. Up until this point, who have been the big surprise? What teams have been the big surprises for you?
I mean, I think Washington, the way they've been playing, I think the fact that they're first in the Metro, I thought it'd be Carolina and New Jersey 1-2 in that division. So the fact of the matter is that they're sitting atop the Metro and like running away with the President's Trophy is really surprising to me.
Yeah.
I mean, people can point to, I think I'm a little bit surprised at the way Tampa's been playing because I wasn't sure what it was going to be like, you know, without Steven Stamkos and Jake the Snake Etzel's fit right in there, and that team just continues to win. And they're playing well, got Ryan McDonough back, so I like the way Tampa's been playing, you know. And then you look, you know, on one side you say, you know, I mean, look, Montreal's a nice surprise too because, well, I mean, I think this is where they needed to be. And I've talked to a lot of people, whether the Canadians wanted to admit it externally or not. Internally, the belief was this was the year that they needed to compete for a playoff spot, maybe not make the playoffs, but they needed to play meaningful games in March and April and not be out of the playoff mix by Christmas, and they're not. And that's exactly where they needed to be. Now, that was my belief. I know some people thought, oh, they're still rebuild, all this stuff. I could see a scenario where the Montreal Canadiens keep players as own rentals, quote-unquote own rentals, because they're free agents. Because what value are you going to get from them? The most value they have right now is to your team because you're winning and you're playing well.
Right.
So, I mean, I think Detroit got off to a slower start than I thought. Nashville's kind of a disappointing. They're starting to rebound a little bit because of all the moves they made in the offseason. Jonathan Marchessault, Stamkos, Shea, all that stuff. But, you know, the big thing for me was Colorado, the way they just completely revamped their goaltending situation with, you know, a couple trades. They, you know, Gorgiev wasn't playing well. They bring in Wedgwood. They get Blackwood. And Blackwood's been a nice surprise because you always wondered, okay, what is he going to do? Like, how can he do it on a good team? Because he's done it on a bunch of bad teams, and you knew the talent was there. Now he's able to do it with Colorado, so that's really good. And I think, you know, Minnesota got off to a good start, but they've kind of come back to the pack because of the Kaprizov injury. And I mean, the Winnipeg Jets, the way they got off to I was unbelievable the way they played.
Huge.
But I mean, look, I've said this to a bunch of people. I said, if the Winnipeg Jets are playing like this type of defense in this game in the playoffs, I don't know how they cannot go far in the playoffs. And I was so surprised with the way they didn't play that way against Colorado last year. But I got to throw this out here because, Pat, we're starting to have this debate more and more in the NHL. And we heard it a lot in the NFL this year. Maybe, I mean, coincidence or not, it coincides because all we hear is running backs don't get paid, goaltenders need to be paid fair value. Well, right now, you can make, and I think there's a legitimate case to be made, that the Hart Trophy at this point in the National Hockey League season has to go to Connor Hellebuyck. The way he's the most valuable player in the league right now to any team. Without Connor Hellebuyck, the Winnipeg Jets are not where they are in the standings. And no single player is running away with the award right now. Other player. Like if Kaprizov stayed healthy in Minnesota, yeah. But nobody else is running away with this thing.
Who, just to stick on the surprises, Do you see, and I see CA's got a question there. We'll get to that in a second. I'm sure it's about the Stars.
Oh, Utah, nice surprise too. Utah, first year in the league.
Yeah, I wanted to go
Playing really
there.
well.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing there. I mean, I like their team. Good
I've got-
coaches, good players. I mean, obviously it's the players from Arizona, but still they brought in Sergachev. They traded for Sergachev, Marino. They have a good coach, good goaltending.
Are they drawing?
They're drawing. People want to go. You know, new build. I mean, obviously it's where the Jazz play. They're going to upgrade it even more, but just a really good. I mean, I thought this team could compete for a playoff spot this year, and they're right next in the West too.
That's a big jump. I definitely wanted to talk about Utah. I've got some people work-wise who are out there. They're all excited about.
Yeah, no, Utah's a good team this year. I saw them firsthand a few times this year. Like, this team is really good, really disciplined, good structural hockey. So very good team.
Well, similar to the Washington Football Club, you think they should keep I think they should keep the hockey club. The other names I thought kind of suck.
Well, I mean, like the only name I thought it was going to be was Yeti, but I guess there's some confusion with copyrights and stuff, so I guess it's not going to be that name. At this point, I would take Utah Hockey Club.
Yeah.
Any of the other names I've seen.
It's very oddly enough, it's very distinctive, right? You wouldn't think it is, but it's very
oddly distinctive. I know every team's supposed to have a nickname, like they're supposed to, but it fits Utah. Like that, it just fits. Like I don't like the other names. I'm not a fan of the other names. The only one I would have liked is if they would have found a way to like buy the ECHL name of the Grizzlies, then I'd be okay with it. Because the Utah Grizzlies was the ECHL team that played out there. So that'd be the only name I'd be okay with. But other than that, I'll take the soccer style in hockey with the Utah Hockey Club.
Yeah, definitely happy to see them doing well. CA's got a question. I've got to believe this is about the Stars. So he's talking about the veterans and who have been injured and some good season by the kids. What are your thoughts about the Stars, even before the trading deadline, as he mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, the Stars have been playing well. I mean, they're always a dangerous team in the Central Division. I think they're one of the better teams. They're always a threat to win the Western Conference, go to Stanley Cup. I mean, Pete DeBoer, much maligned coach, gets a lot of criticism because he can't get the team across the finish line. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, they've been in the conference final, I think, like 3 of the last 4 years or 4 of the past 5 years with 2 different coaches. So, I mean, they're a consistently good team. This feels like the Dallas Stars of the late 90s and early 2000s where they were always there. The Sagan injury is a blow to them, but they'll have money to burn when they put him on LTIR, so maybe they make a run at JT Miller. But again, everybody has to realize that it's not just this season you're getting JT Miller. You have to figure out the next 5 years of that contract. And if you take on 5 years at $8 million, somebody has to go. And they have a lot of kids that need to get paid on Dallas too. So money in, money out. That's how it's gonna kind of work there. But Dallas would be a good fit for him. But I think the Stars will look to add a defenseman. I think they want to look to add up front. They'll have money to use this season. So, but the Stars, hanging right in there. Always a good team. Always a threat. Stankoven's playing well. Wyatt Johnson's picked it up. Jason Robertson's really stepped up his game. Jamie Benn has been really a force this year with the kids. Up and down that lineup, they're really just a good Miro Heiskanen on the back end and Jake Ottinger, obviously, who got paid at the beginning of the season.
We talked about the teams pretty much that we're surprised about. Who are the big disappointments in your mind so far? I mean, the Bruins, to me, are a bit of a disappointment. I don't even know they're 24-20. They've been outscored by like 25 goals this year.
Yeah, they have a minus goal differential. That's not how you make the playoffs or win in the playoffs. But I mean, Bruins definitely. I mean, I kind of could have seen it coming because I was waiting for the demise of the Boston Bruins when this was going to be the year. I said Nashville was kind of a disappointment to start the season. They've kind of picked it up, but they're still disappointing because of you add all that talent, not really there. You look around the league, right? I mean, I gotta say one of the nice surprises got to be Columbus after what happened in the summer with the tragedy and everything. Columbus is a very, very nice surprise kicking around. The Buffalo, I think it continues to be a disappointment. Despite what the Bills are doing, the Sabres need to be better. They're not. Again, said at the beginning of the season, on the stuff I did. Sabres were missing the playoffs. Didn't like the Lindy Ruff hire. Didn't understand it. I don't understand the signings. A lot of the vultures are circling around Buffalo, trying to pry players out of there. Like Dylan Cousins, teams are calling on him. Could they move out Bo Byram?
Wasn't Lindy Ruff there before?
Yeah. This is like his third stint there.
Yeah.
They thought this was the coach that could get discipline. No. You need to change the culture. The culture in that room needs to change. Too much losing. And that's the problem. Is they've accepted losing. And you have to change that.
Who is there somebody of the disappointments that you can see making a little run here as we start to I'll kind of segue into contenders and pretenders. Do you see any of these teams that are struggling now making a run here in the second half?
I mean, maybe Nashville could make a run. I think Nashville could be the team because they're starting to play a little bit better. I mean, Ottawa better make the playoffs this year. If they don't, well, it's another disappointing year for them. Detroit should probably make a run, try to get into the playoffs. They made a lot of moves in the offseason.
Yeah.
They couldn't get it done too, so that's a little bit of a disappointing, for them.
Who's the pretenders of the teams that are doing well now? Who are the pretenders? They're just not going to compete for. You can't see them competing for a cup. Toronto comes to mind right away.
I mean, Toronto. They're playing well under Craig Berube. They've done things, but they have a lot of question marks in the offseason with Mitch Marner, John Tavares, who's staying, who's going. Matthew Nyes needs a new deal. They're playing the right way, but they need their goaltenders to get healthy. Joe Wall, Anthony Stolarz needs to get back. Again, I'm not sold on the Toronto Maple Leafs making a run unless they win a first-round series again. And then they got to win a second-round series.
They should probably set their calendars to say it's like February when the playoffs start or something.
Right, exactly. No, October, because they love
October, even better.
I mean, if I look at it, I'm not sure Minnesota's really a cup contending team to me. They have a good team. They put together a good young team, but I think Colorado can find their way back into that division. Top three. Calgary's interesting because, they're retooling on the fly and, speaking with Craig Conroy multiple times that he's just looking for a right shot center. He's willing to move a piece for the right age appropriate player. It feels like he can sign Rasmus Anderson. So, Calgary's a player right now. We'll see if they make the playoffs, but they're right there.
Vancouver, what are your thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, say.
Vancouver should be a team that can make the playoffs, but I'm not sure they will just because too much turmoil right now. Maybe they make that Miller trade and everything is okay.
The New York teams, how do you see that? Islanders, we know, will not probably make the playoffs. You see the Rangers or your Devils, unbiased opinion here, making a serious run at the Cup or even the finals.
Well, it depends on Markstrom's going to be out 4 weeks. Well, supposedly he'll miss up to 4 Nations because he had a little bit of a knee injury the other night. Got injured. Devils got to start playing the right way, and they got to play consistent 60-minute hockey night to night. For New Jersey, it depends on who they play in the first round of playoffs and if they have home ice, because if they start on the road against Carolina, I'm not sure they're beating Carolina in the first round.
Yeah.
Just because it's a house of horrors for them to go down there.
Momentum can mean something, too. We saw Winnipeg lose momentum going into the playoffs last year, I think. We see teams every year get hot and get cold.
Right. I don't know if the Rangers are a legit cup contender to win. I'm not sure New Jersey is. I think they're still a piece or two away from legitimately competing.
Rick brings up the Canadians. What do you think about the Canadians? They are better.
A Canadian team win the Stanley Cup. I think Winnipeg is probably the best chance to win it. Sorry, Toronto fans.
Team.
That's the God's honest truth. I think Winnipeg Jets are probably a better team.
I ask this question every year. Would hockey be better if a Canadian? Would it be good for hockey for a Canadian team?
Yes.
Right. Canadian teams and the original six, they're the teams that it's good when they're good,
Original
right?
six draws. Everybody, as much as everybody complains, the original six teams draw. Everybody loves original six. When the original six teams do well, the league does well. And that's how it goes.
Who are your favorites to get to the finals and win this whole thing right now? Today, if I put you on the
Probably Vegas. I think this is up there for sure. I think Vegas. Got to put Edmonton up there. I'd probably put Florida in there just because they've been there twice already. Winnipeg for sure. And I'd probably say Dallas too.
teams a little bit in the back, what team we didn't mention anywhere here as favorites or pretenders or contenders. I'll bring this up. Danny Fuller's not with us from LA. What about the Kings? What are your thoughts on them? Can they make a run?
Yeah, they can. They just better not play the Oilers in the first round of playoffs.
Right.
But I like the way LA's playing. They got 4 deep lines. They're starting to play better at home. They got a good team, good coach, Jim Hiller. They had a nice win against Florida the other night. That's a standard team, as Jim Hiller said. That's the standard on how you want to play in the National Hockey League. So they passed a big test for them. It's not anything fancy. It's just grinding hockey. And Anze Kopitar is one of the best, players still in the league. Doesn't get enough credit for what he does and how he plays the game. So, yeah, LA has a chance, but they better not play Edmonton in the first round, which is probably what's going to happen again for like the 5th straight year.
What other things besides this playoff race or tied around this playoff race? And I guess we can include the trade deadline, coaches on the hot seat. What should we be looking for as we head into the, towards the stretch drive here in February and March?
I mean, obviously, Four Nations face-off is coming up. International hockey returns, Montreal and Boston. That'll be fun to see USA, Canada, Sweden, Finland play Four Nations. Obviously,
that's gonna be cool. When is that, by the way?
I think it starts like mid-February.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
It's a nice little tournament that they'll have NHL best on best, so that'll be fun. Obviously, the trade deadline, where does JT Miller go? Where does some of these top players that people think they're going to get traded are going to go? Is it going to be quiet? This year, obviously, all eyes on Washington, D.C. with Ovechkin 20 goals away now from breaking Wayne Gretzky's record. I think everybody anticipates is probably going to happen by the end of the season, and I think he can do it.
Will Gretzky be there?
Oh, yeah. He said he's already going to be there. And Gretzky wants him to do it. So that makes
he's a classy guy. He's a classy guy. Now Wayne Gretzky, I think, is anybody not like Wayne Gretzky? I'm sure there are, but
I mean, if you talk to people in November, yeah, because of the pictures that were flying around, but we're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But you know what? I separate the two, and I really don't care. I think Wayne's very classy all the way.
Yeah,
classy. Same with Mario. All those old time guys. Wayne knows. So he knows how special it means for Alex to break his record, what it meant for him to break Gordie Howe's record. So, yeah, I think Alex is going to do it. That's probably one of the biggest storylines to watch moving forward as we hit in there. Obviously, trade deadline comes up. Playoff races are heating up as well. And I'm just looking forward. I mean, the outdoor game in Ohio State is going to be fun. With Detroit and Columbus, that'll be fun. Talking with a couple of guys on Columbus, a couple of players that went to Michigan. They don't want any part of dressing in the Ohio State locker room. They want no part of it.
That's cool.
They didn't even wear. So the other night when the Columbus Blue Jackets played on the island, there was a video going around. Columbus, a lot of the Blue Jackets players were wearing Ohio State football jerseys. But if you notice, the video cuts off right before you see Kent Johnson, Zach Werenski, and Adam Fantilli walk into the frame. They ain't doing it. They're not doing it. They bleed the blue, and they went to Michigan. So guarantee you, those boys were wearing Michigan jerseys on the way in.
Excellent point.
And then everybody talks about. So I gotta get this. I want to bring my Sunday sports reporter hat to Friday show right here. We like doing it. When I was on the Sunday show, I always like to do we're not at closing remarks, but this is kind of a closing remark for me on the hockey stuff. Everybody complains about the outdoor games. Everybody complains about the same teams always being there. The outdoor game in Wrigley was awesome. I was there. I thought it was a great time. I thought it was a great scene. Maybe the game wasn't the greatest. The Blackhawks are just a bad team. But the atmosphere was really good. The venue was great. Wrigley was great. Then the NHL announces that they're going to go to Florida for 2 outdoor games next season. Now everybody complains that why are we going to Florida? Guys, you're going to be the ones that are going to kill the outdoor game.
Right.
It's not here's what you need to understand. It's not about you. It's not about the national appeal of it anymore. It's a regional thing that these teams want. It helps the regional market. Look, the first couple were national draws. Most of them have been national draws, but now it's about regional. And that's why they're going to Florida for 2 games. Oh, by the way, it does get cold in Florida, people.
It just snowed in Florida this week.
Yeah, exactly. It just snowed. So they could play outdoor hockey in Florida. Heck, the streets of New Orleans were cold enough where people were ice skating out in the middle of the street. So there was enough ice on the street to go play ice hockey. So yes, I love the idea. I love that they're going to Florida for 2 games. I love the fact that it's Tampa, Boston, Tampa, Boston, Florida Rangers. That's going to be really fun.
Cool. Yeah, I still love the outdoor games for sure. I don't care where they play them. Play them on an aircraft carrier. We haven't done that yet, have we?
They played at Colorado Springs. So yeah, they played at the Air Force Academy and the Naval Academy.
I want to see them play on an Air Force. They played an NBA game on
carrier. You can put ice anywhere now.
Right? I mean, I think that'd be fun. See them skating uphill, downhill if there's some current there.
Yeah.
That's a great last word on hockey. I haven't talked to you in so long. We haven't. I want to talk a little college football if we can. Get your thoughts on this. A little bit about this last season and this first 12-team playoff, which I think went fairly. They need to make some tweakings in the seedings. Forget the seedings versus the rankings. We need one thing: the right team. If you're going to have buys, the right teams got to get the buys, or add 4 teams and don't have buys. I think
That's probably coming.
Yeah.
But you have to have an emphasis on. I will say this because we have the same issue in NFL. Because everybody complains that lower seeds, you have to make the conference championships games matter. There has to be a reward for winning the conference championship.
I want to do away with conference championship games. I want the conference season champion to be the ones that are rewarded. That's what I want.
I mean, that's still rewarding the conference champion. That I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I just want the conference. If you're winning your conference and finishing first in your conference or winning your conference, whatever, should matter.
But we have to avoid things like Ohio State playing Oregon in the quarterfinals. That can't happen. They should be.
No, I mean, Oregon's route to the championship it was the murderer's row. I wrote this and I've said this and I'll keep saying it. Texas and Penn State got rewarded for losing.
Agreed, 100%.
If replaced Tennessee and Indiana in the same situation, they're on the road to start in the first round of the playoff.
We saw it was a very interesting playoff. I thought Notre Dame, and I had a big futures bet. If you have heard my show at all season, I was rooting for them. I knew it was uphill battle all the way, and it was exciting. I'm not upset that they didn't win. It was never in my hands, so I enjoyed the ride, especially after they lost to NIU. You thought it was over.
Right.
So I thought they did a great job. I thought Marcus Freeman grew as a coach tremendously this year.
Love him as a coach. We both liked the hire back when he was first hired by Notre Dame. I thought this was a great hire by them.
Who wins? Who's the big winner? Ryan Day's a big winner because he had to win a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, he saved his job. Let's be honest.
I keep telling people, they're like, he's safe for 5 years. I'm like, he's safe until he loses to Michigan for the 5th time in a row next year.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. He's safe until he loses to Michigan again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that's fair, but that's a rivalry that people don't seem to understand. Is it fair he's 70-10 and won a national championship?
Doesn't matter. You lost to Michigan 4 straight years.
That's all that matters.
No coach has done that at Ohio State.
Well, John Cooper, I think, went 0-7-1 or something.
Yeah,
He lost his job too.
But you know what I'm saying? But the guys before him didn't do it.
No. And again, that matters. That's the difference. And that's one thing that, again, we still have that rivalry, and maybe Alabama, Auburn, I think, are the two rivalries that stand out to me as different in college than any pro sport could ever have rivalry-wise. You can't have it. And you couldn't have it the same way. And Michigan, that game's always going to matter more than the national championship to these teams.
And I'm going to be honest, for some reason, Ryan Day coaches differently in that game.
Yeah, he does. He was tight. The team played tight.
Always tight in that game.
Yeah,
you look at every other game he coaches, he's fine. That game, he's tight. Yeah.
He needs to get that monkey off his back. If he beats Michigan next year, then he probably is safe for a while. But
this was the year they were supposed to beat Michigan because Michigan was bad.
Yeah.
Agreed. Look, give shout out to Jeff Monken and Army this year going into conference and winning conference first year. I mean, I know they lost to Navy, and that's the game that matters the most for them. Like, that's another rivalry game that, and this is the second year in a row you've seen it, right? Navy last year had to play conference championship game. Army was resting. This year, Army had to play conference championship game. Navy was resting. So, but that game matters. That was fun. Arizona State, some love for them. They were supposed to finish dead last in the Big 12 and win the whole thing.
Great story. That whole Big 12 was like upside down, the whole conference. BYU.
That was a great conference to watch. I know a lot of people were down on the Big 12 this year, but I thought they had some great football games this year.
I said it early in the year that they weren't going to be the best conference. They might be the fourth best, quite frankly. The ACC at third or fourth.
I would have ranked Big 12 a little ahead of the ACC this year.
But I said it would be an exciting league because it would be wide open, and it was. And you saw three teams competing for the title that were picked to finish near the bottom in Arizona State, Colorado, and BYU.
Yeah. So
so
I thought it was a tremendous season. Everybody wants to complain SEC, all this stuff. Look, the teams that didn't make the playoffs, you missed the playoffs because you just weren't good enough. Like, you lost games you had no business losing. Alabama, dude, you can't lose to Vanderbilt. Like, you just can't. And you can't get blown out by Oklahoma. Like, that's
our Hurricanes. Yeah. You can't lose to Georgia Tech or Syracuse.
No, you can't lose. I mean, Georgia Tech maybe not so much because they had the upset at the beginning of the year. And they're actually a pretty decent team this year. But that's a game you can't lose. And the Syracuse game is inexcusable. You're up 20.
Inexcusable. 21 there. I was at that game, and it was,
their defense just wasn't championship playoff bound defense. It just wasn't quality.
No, it isn't. What's your take on, and again, we all have problems, and I've come to defend Cam Ward about the bowl game, taking himself out at the half. I'm not for guys, opting out at all. I get it.
No.
But Cam Ward was going to opt out and didn't opt out because 10 other guys were going to opt out if he did. So he talked to the coaching staff. He was only going to play a quarter. He ended up playing a half because I think he threw the ball 6 times or something in the first quarter. They decided to go to halftime. It was all planned out ahead of time. He stayed there in uniform, helping coach up his backup. I have no problem with Cam Ward and the way he handled that myself. I may have been, if I'm Marco Cristobal, I might have talked him into going in on that last drive, but I don't really have a big problem with Cam Ward and the way he handled that.
I think the more and more comes out about what Cam Ward did, I have no problem with Cam Ward at all. I don't like it, but I understand it. I have a problem with the way Mario Cristobal handled it.
Oh, he didn't back him up right away.
No, he didn't back him up right away. He's like, I didn't know anything about it. And then he just made it worse. And he come out later, just makes it worse. It's like, dude, just at this point, just don't say anything. Like, just don't say anything. I think Mario Cristobal really hurt himself more than Cam Ward hurt himself.
You think, as a Hurricane fan as I am, do you think Marco Cristobal's the answer? I'm unsure.
No, absolutely not. I never liked the hire. I didn't think it was the right hire. What did he do at Oregon? I keep telling everybody, what did he do up there? Nothing. He didn't do anything.
And thoughts on Carson Beck and his $4 million?
Why? Why go get him? Like, he didn't play great at Georgia this year.
He didn't play great, and you also don't know if he can even throw until March. He won't be able to play spring drills. So
I don't know. Yeah, I don't get it. So
I think things are. I don't look for necessarily a great season out of Miami next year, unless the spring transfer portal is a huge success.
Yeah, I don't think so. So
let's see. What else did I want to ask you about? What else thoughts you have in a college football season?
no, I mean I thought it was a really good college football season. I think this was a kind of a year that you kind of wish the Pac-12 was still around because of what happened the year before. Like this is a year, man. I mean, imagine if we had a Pac-12. Like, just imagine, like, what the games would have been.
And Washington State was really good. They'd have had a better shot at a playoff if there was a Pac-12, assuming they played as well.
Yeah, I think that to me is, like, the big takeaway is, like, I thought that if you had another conference, and I think this is where they're going to have to look and say, I understand the money and I understand all these teams and all this stuff and everything, but it was a regional sport that was national. It's not a national sport. It's a regional sport that has national appeal.
That's what I've always said. Exactly those words.
and the conferences, those conferences matter now, because now everyone wants to talk about strength of schedule and the schedules and this and that. When you have 16-team conferences, not every schedule is going to be the same.
Right. Yeah. The conferences are too big, and the changes can't be, by the way, and I will put up Rick's comment here as I start to talk about the playoff again. I did not check with Basement Bob. He may still be filing a new lawsuit against me today. Let him. That's fine. I'm married to a lawyer. She told me not to worry. Whatever tweaks they make cannot be geared towards just appeasing the Big Ten and the SEC.
No, you can't. No, because you need more teams to be in it. Like, you need legitimate. Now, the year before, we had 8 legit teams that could win a national title. This year, we probably had like 4.
Fair.
Like, fair. If you had a 6-team playoff this year, the 6 teams that, got far, like, there were 6 legit teams. If you had given me that, I would have been okay.
It'd been very interesting to see if there was a 14 playoff, like if Notre Dame even makes the playoff. I'm not sure that they
probably don't with one loss. They probably don't.
Yeah, I probably don't.
They probably don't.
Yeah.
But you never know. You don't know because a conference champion, maybe they don't put the Big 12 champion Arizona State in. Maybe they don't put Clemson doesn't get in, right? Teams like
no. You're right. I don't think Arizona State gets in. Clemson, no way gets in. Ohio State's in. Oregon's in.
Texas is not in.
Texas and
Georgia.
They might have gone Georgia with that. Even with the up and down season they had, they probably would have been.
They won the conference. They won the conference.
Yeah.
Is Texas really going to get in? They had 2 losses and that's what I tell everybody. It's like, okay, everybody wants to crush Indiana about their strength of schedule and who they played. Make the same argument for Texas. Who did they play? And look at the teams they lost to.
It's a great point.
Like they lost to Georgia twice, right? The second game was a lot closer. Probably should have won it. But then they played Ohio State and lost. So they lost to 2 good teams this year and played nobody.
Well, that was my argument with all the teams that argued that, Alabama especially, shut up. You had a chance to take
you didn't play nobody. Like you lost.
You had a chance you could have taken care of business by beating any one of the 4 teams you lost to. Sorry. No. You had no argument.
Lane Kiffin can't get it done when it matters.
Right. Now, Lane Kiffin, actually, great point. You lose to Florida, who, by the way, was a big surprise this year. Florida had a really tough schedule. Every one of their losses at the time was a top 15 team.
Right. And then they rebounded to finish nicely. I mean, I still don't think Billy Napier's the guy there, but.
No, I don't either. I
mean, I think South Carolina, was the hottest team that, closed the season out.
Yeah, I think you're right. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. I think one year, the blowout.
I think for me, whatever it is, conference champion, regular season conference, how they ever decide this thing, have to automatically get in. That doesn't mean they have to get an automatic bye.
Agreed 100%. Go to 16 teams, put in all the conference champions. You got 6 at-larges. Let's just play. I don't care about blowouts in the first round.
This is what made the playoff and the semifinals so much better, was teams were playing consistently for a couple of weeks. They got in their groove, and they gave us 2 great semifinal games this year.
100%. 100%. Jim, we got to wrap it up. I appreciate you coming in. Stick around for 1 second. I want to chat for one quick thing. Guys, I appreciate you joining us today, joining myself and Jim. I'll be on Sunday with the Stream of Consciousness, and then next week we should have an interview guest. I'll let you know about that maybe Sunday or early next week. Guys, have a great day. Keith Engle for TGI Sports Talk 101. Thanks, Jim. Bye-bye.
Bye.